A very different kind of collapse is unfolding across the United States. This isn't a stock market crash or a housing meltdown. It's a widespread retreat from restaurant chains that were once overflowing with customers. Red Lobster has filed for bankruptcy. Denny's and Arby's, longtime staples of family dinners and late-night meals, are now being forced to sell assets, shut down locations, and scale back operations simply to stay alive. Hundreds of well-known restaurants have already vanished. With them went thousands of jobs. Empty storefronts now dot local neighborhoods, and another familiar piece of American culture has quietly disappeared. What makes this moment truly unsettling isn't the fact that these chains are failing. It's the realization that this may only be the early stage. Operating costs keep climbing, customer traffic continues to thin out, debt loads are ballooning, and many major brands are now balancing on a financial knife's edge. In this breakdown, we're going to take a hard look at 12 major restaurant chains that are already in decline, using real financial data, official filings, and the survival moves they've publicly announced. One of them, number 7, will likely catch you completely off guard. Stay with me, and let's get started. Number 12, Red Lobster, an American seafood giant that's now sinking fast. For decades, Red Lobster was the place people associated with generous portions, affordable indulgence, and a night out that felt like a treat without breaking the bank. But today, the very strategy that helped build that reputation is what's pulling the brand under. In May of 2024, Red Lobster filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. Nearly 100 locations were shut down, and the company began cutting away entire sections of its operation just to stop the financial bleeding. A chain that once symbolized abundance at the American dinner table is now being forced to completely rethink its future as it heads into 2025. At the center of the collapse is a decision that once looked harmless, even brilliant: endless shrimp. Unlimited shrimp, all you can eat. What started as a limited-time promotion slowly turned into a permanent offering. Under pressure from Thai Union, its former controlling shareholder, the deal stayed on the menu even as costs exploded. The math never worked. That single promotion reportedly generated more than $11 million in losses. And by the end of 2023, Red Lobster posted a net loss of $76 million. Customers loved the deal. The company couldn't afford it. Red Lobster essentially became trapped by its own popularity. Many people assume the brand failed because food quality declined. But the real issue runs deeper. Customer traffic has fallen roughly 30% since 2019, not because the menu worsened, but because inflation crushed the casual dining customer. As food prices, insurance, taxes, and everyday living expenses surged, Americans over 50, Red Lobster's most loyal demographic, stopped dining out. They returned to cooking at home. A brand built around family outings suddenly lost the families that kept it alive. After entering bankruptcy, Red Lobster moved quickly into survival mode. The company installed a new CEO, Damola Adamolican, eliminated outdated promotions, partnered with Olo to modernize its ordering systems, and redesigned the menu to cut ingredient costs and stabilize margins. Media outlets now describe Red Lobster like a patient just out of emergency surgery, no longer in immediate danger, but far from recovered. There's cautious optimism, but the road ahead is painful and uncertain. The big question remains: can Red Lobster truly reinvent itself? Or will it survive only as a nostalgic memory of endless shrimp and seafood feasts? What was once a symbol of generosity has become a warning for the entire restaurant industry. Sometimes success isn't about giving customers more. It's about knowing when to stop before the costs consume you. Number 11. Hooters. A bankruptcy that didn't come as a shock, just a confirmation that the numbers no longer worked. In March 2025, Hooters officially filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. The announcement didn't feel like breaking news. It felt more like the inevitable final step in a long-running financial process that had already played out behind the scenes. What happened afterward was even more revealing. By November 2025, Hooters was acquired by its original founding group. After years of being passed from one investment fund to another, the brand circled back to its roots, almost as if acknowledging that every expansion strategy and revenue forecast from the private equity era had ultimately failed. Unlike some restaurant chains that implode due to food quality issues or public controversy, Hooters entered 2025 facing a colder, more unforgiving problem. The business simply no longer generated enough cash to service its debt. The core concept itself stopped producing margins strong enough to justify its cost structure. Rising real estate expenses, a labor-heavy service model, reduced customer traffic after the pandemic, and debt accumulated under previous ownership all converged at once. The result was unavoidable. The company was forced to cut away locations and operations that no longer made financial sense. More than 100 restaurants were closed or sold off during restructuring. One YouTube commenter summed it up more clearly than any analyst ever could. When a business stops serving customers and focuses only on extracting profit, the outcome becomes predictable. Investors and diners reached the same conclusion. Hooters didn't fail because the food suddenly became bad, and it wasn't undone by a major cultural backlash. The real issue was economic. The model stopped creating value. The brand didn't collapse because its concept was outdated. It collapsed because the market no longer wanted to pay premium operating costs for an experience that cheaper, faster, and more flexible alternatives now deliver more efficiently. Even as the revived Hooters LLC promises a return to a classic beach-style identity, fresher wings instead of frozen product, and adjusted uniforms as part of a rebrand, the reality remains harsh. With heavy legacy debt and a much smaller footprint, the company now has just enough resources to stay alive, not to grow. There's no expansion plan on the horizon, no aggressive comeback. The 2025 bankruptcy wasn't a dramatic fall, it was confirmation. In the food and beverage industry, high-cost concepts only survive as long as customers are willing to pay to sustain them. When that willingness disappears, contraction becomes the first line of defense. That's exactly what Hooters is doing now. Not rebuilding for growth, but shrinking simply to avoid vanishing altogether. So the question is this: if Hooters cuts costs and reworks its menu, does this business model still have a future? Or has the market already moved on? Number 10. Wendy's. Sometimes a single idea, introduced at exactly the wrong moment, can damage an entire brand. That's what happened to Wendy's at the end of the first quarter of 2025, when the company suddenly found itself at the center of a firestorm over a concept that never even made it to rollout. Wendy's leadership floated the idea of testing dynamic pricing, where menu prices would fluctuate based on the time of day. Almost instantly, customers and media interpreted it the same way. Prices would go up during peak hours. The reaction was swift and brutal. The backlash forced the company to issue clarifications and then abandon the plan entirely. There was no food safety issue, no quality scandal, just a poorly timed message in an unforgiving economic climate. And that was enough to turn customers away. Why? Because Wendy's chose to talk about flexible pricing at the exact moment Americans are cutting every possible expense, especially when it comes to eating out. For years, Wendy's built its reputation on offering solid quality at fair prices, so even the suggestion of paying more felt like a breach of trust. That perception carried real consequences. In 2025 alone, Wendy's lost nearly 50% of its stock value and announced plans to close roughly 300 locations between 2025 and 2026. The company attempted to pivot with Project Fresh, a rebranding initiative centered on digital menu upgrades and technology-driven improvements. But here's the contradiction. Wendy's was pushing innovation while operating without a permanent CEO after its previous leader stepped down mid-year. It was a brand trying to redefine itself without anyone firmly at the wheel. Beyond the PR misstep, Wendy's faces deeper structural challenges. Food costs continue to climb, labor expenses remain stubbornly high. Meanwhile, competitors are moving in the opposite direction, cutting prices to retain traffic. Family-style chains like Chili's now offer larger portions for nearly the same price, making Wendy's value proposition harder to justify. When customers feel they can get more food for the same money elsewhere, fast food stops feeling convenient and starts feeling overpriced. One comment under a Wendy's video captured the public mood perfectly. "I stopped eating out when a burger that used to cost $3.49 suddenly became an 18 meal. That reaction isn't just frustration, it's a warning. Once customers start comparing fast food prices to what they can cook at home, the value equation breaks down. And for a fast food chain, that's a dangerous place to be. Wendy's isn't struggling because its food suddenly got worse. It's struggling because its brand identity has become unclear, its messaging missed the moment, and it hasn't yet proven why customers should keep paying a premium. So, what do you think? Does Wendy's still offer enough value to compete? Or are more consumers going to choose their own kitchens over a fast food brand that's lost its footing? If you're following this series, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because what's coming next may be even more surprising. Number 9. Pizza Hut. A quiet breakdown, and a lawsuit that may have foreshadowed what's coming next. In January 2025, a Pizza Hut franchise operator in Turkey filed for bankruptcy after Yum! Brands terminated the agreement and sued the franchisee over performance issues. At first glance, it looked like a distant, isolated dispute. In reality, it turned out to be an early warning signal for the entire brand. When a business stops producing results, even its parent company is willing to walk away. And by the end of 2025, that same message reached the U.S. market. Yum! Brands publicly acknowledged it was weighing the option of selling or spinning off Pizza Hut altogether. The decision followed 7 straight quarters of declining same-store sales, including a sharp 6% drop in Q3 2025 alone. There was no food safety scandal, no public controversy over quality. Pizza Hut's decline is driven by something far less dramatic. It no longer delivers growth. The modern U.S. pizza market doesn't reward legacy brands simply for existing. It rewards speed, value, and convenience. Domino's dominates with delivery technology and efficiency. Papa John's pulls customers in through relentless discounting. Independent pizza shops win on flavor, flexibility, and lower prices. Pizza Hut, meanwhile, is stuck in the middle, not the fastest, not the cheapest, and no longer distinctive enough to stand out. With tens of thousands of locations worldwide, sheer scale has stopped being an advantage. As consumers become increasingly price-conscious and lean toward discount-heavy delivery options, Pizza Hut's slower and less adaptive operating model has turned into a financial burden rather than a strength. Yum! Brands has made its priorities clear. KFC is now the growth focus, while Pizza Hut is being left to either stabilize itself or face separation. Stepping back may be Yum's way of limiting further damage rather than doubling down on a struggling asset. This raises a larger question. Is Pizza Hut failing because the market has moved on, or because the brand never evolved fast enough to keep up? What do you think? Does Pizza Hut still have a path to recovery, or is a sale to new ownership the only realistic outcome? Share your thoughts. Number 8. Subway. The irony with Subway is simple. The larger it becomes, the more exposed it is. The brand operates the biggest restaurant network on the planet, yet it earns some of the lowest revenue per location in the entire fast food industry. By the end of 2024, the average Subway restaurant in the U.S. was bringing in roughly $500,000 per year. That level of sales might have worked years ago, but today it's dangerously thin, as food, labor, and operating costs continue to rise. What was once Subway's greatest advantage, massive scale, has turned into a liability. The system is wide, but each individual store is financially fragile. After years of oversaturation, Subway shut down more than 2,000 locations before 2019. Under new ownership by Roark Capital, following a nearly $10 billion acquisition, the company shifted its focus toward international growth. But expanding outward hasn't solved the core issue. The real problem remains unchanged. Subway still hasn't figured out how to significantly increase profit at the store level. Leadership instability hasn't helped. CEO John Chidsey stepped down at the end of 2024, leaving Carrie Walsh in an interim role while the company searches for a permanent replacement. That makes 3 CEO changes in just 5 years, never a good sign for long-term strategy. Tensions inside the franchise system are also escalating. This isn't just about minor disagreements anymore. In 2024, a franchisee operating 48 locations filed for bankruptcy after losing a $3 million damages judgment. That development signals a more serious shift. Legal and financial risk is now spreading through the franchise network itself, not just corporate headquarters. Subway is attempting a reset. The company has refreshed its menu with initiatives like the Subway Series and Sidekicks, rolled out more self-service kiosks, and signed agreements to open 4,000 new locations in China. On the surface, it looks like momentum. But new menu items and upgraded technology are cosmetic fixes. The deeper issue remains untouched. Until Subway strengthens the profit model at each individual store, growth only magnifies the weakness. The real question isn't where Subway expands next. It's whether future locations can actually make money at all. So what do you think? Is Subway finally on the path to recovery? Or is it simply scaling a problem that's never been solved? If you want to keep uncovering what's really happening inside the U.S. restaurant industry, don't forget to like and subscribe. Number 7. TGI Fridays. The bigger question facing this brand is simple. Does a concept built around lingering still work in a world where most people would rather stay home? TGI Fridays was designed for a different era. It wasn't just about food, it was about gathering. Customers came to relax, talk, and spend time inside the restaurant, turning a meal into a social event rather than a quick stop. But consumer habits have shifted dramatically. Americans are dining at home more than ever, and when they do order out, speed and delivery matter more than atmosphere. That shift raises an uncomfortable question for brands like Fridays. How much demand is left for a model centered on sit-down dining and long stays? By the end of 2024, TGI Fridays filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, after its owner, Tri-Artisan, began restructuring the company's finances. In the months leading up to that decision, roughly 50 locations were shut down. Today, the chain operates somewhere between 80 and 85 restaurants in the U.S., a dramatic decline from the more than 270 locations it once had. While operating under bankruptcy protection, Fridays must renegotiate with creditors, work through franchise agreements, and reassess outstanding financial commitments, including unsecured liabilities tied to gift cards. What's notable is what isn't happening. There's no major scandal involving food quality or leadership missteps. The challenge runs deeper. The core issue is demand. Since the pandemic, consumers have been far more cautious about spending money on full-service dining. Many families now choose fast food, takeout, or cooking at home, rather than paying extra for table service and a restaurant experience. With smartphones, streaming, and delivery apps, socializing no longer requires leaving the house. It's cheaper, easier, and often more convenient to gather at home than to sit down for a long meal at a casual dining chain. TGI Fridays is attempting to adapt by refreshing its menu and repositioning the brand to appeal to younger Gen Z customers, but the underlying dilemma remains unresolved. In a marketplace where convenience comes first, can a brand built on staying longer still find a path forward? Or has the moment for that experience already passed? Number 6. Red Robin. At some point, every restaurant faces a dangerous question. How long can you survive once customers believe they can make a better version of your food at home? That's the exact problem Red Robin is dealing with right now. After years of complaints about food consistency and an uneven dining experience, the brand is struggling to win people back. The third quarter 2025 report makes that clear. Revenue came in at $265.1 million, slightly lower than before. But losses did shrink, falling from $37.8 million to $13.2 million over the first 9 months of the year. That shows improvement, but not a true recovery. Red Robin is trying to steady itself, not sprint forward. Management has leaned into cost-cutting, renewed efforts to improve food quality, and value-focused promotions like Big Yum designed to bring customers in during slower weekdays. At the same time, the company has been quietly reducing its footprint. The restaurant count has slipped from about 500 locations to roughly 480 by 2025. There's been no scandal, no headline-grabbing controversy, just silent closures. And sometimes, that silence is the loudest warning sign. The issue isn't a lack of ideas. The real problem is deeper. Red Robin has lost something far more difficult to rebuild: customer confidence in what's coming out of the kitchen. One comment from the community captured the mood perfectly. "I don't mind paying more if the food is actually good, but what is Red Robin serving now?" That kind of doubt is devastating for a burger chain. Competition hasn't helped. Newer, premium-focused brands like Shake Shack and Five Guys are pulling customers away, while more Americans are choosing to cook at home altogether. Faced with shrinking demand, Red Robin is being forced to scale back just to stay afloat. The company's strategy points toward a slow, long-term turnaround. But the condition is obvious. If food quality doesn't improve in a meaningful way, no amount of promotions or restructuring will matter. There'll just be costly delays. So what's your take? Have you eaten at Red Robin recently? And does the experience still justify the price? Number 5. Rubio's Coastal Grill. You know a restaurant brand is in serious trouble when it's filed for bankruptcy more times than most people upgrade their phones. Rubio's Coastal Grill, the chain that once made California-style seafood tacos a nationwide obsession, has now gone through 2 bankruptcies in just 5 years, with the most recent filing in June 2024. The official explanation was blunt and almost darkly amusing. According to Tasting Table, Rubio's simply couldn't survive the cost of operating in California. No scandal, no food safety issue, just math that no longer worked. The fallout was immediate. Following the announcement, Rubio's shut down roughly 50 of its 136 locations, shrinking its footprint to just 83 restaurants spread across California, Arizona, and Nevada. By August 2024, its primary lender, Trive Capital, stepped in and took full ownership of the company, essentially deciding it was cheaper to buy the chain outright than to keep financing its losses. Since then, Rubio's has entered what can best be described as survival mode. Expansion is no longer the goal. New locations open slowly, cautiously, and only when cash is available. Growth has been replaced with preservation. There's no controversy over artificial ingredients or declining food quality here. Rubio's problem is far simpler and far more brutal. Operating costs are crushing the business. Food prices keep climbing. Energy bills are higher. Labor costs in California have exploded, rising faster than revenues can keep up. Add in the work-from-home shift that erased office lunch traffic, and Rubio's found itself running like a food truck stuck on the highway with no fuel left. One online comment summed it up with painful accuracy. Rubio's isn't bad. My wallet just lives in California. If you want to keep eating tacos, you'd better learn how to make them yourself. Rubio's didn't fail because the food stopped being good. It failed because it tried to sell high-quality tacos in one of the most expensive operating environments in the country. The market doesn't reward flavor alone. It rewards food that's both delicious and profitable. And Rubio's is learning that lesson for the second time. So what about you? Would you pay extra for a seafood taco? Or would you rather make it at home for a fraction of the cost? Drop your thoughts below, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to keep following the next major cracks forming in America's food and beverage industry. Number 4. Denny's. When nostalgia stops being enough to keep customers coming back. For generations, Denny's served as a familiar gathering place for older Americans, a spot for coffee refills, breakfast plates, and long conversations that were part of a weekly routine. But by 2025, that routine has started to fade. Rising living costs have pushed this core customer group to eat out less often, while younger generations, especially Gen Z, show little interest in Denny's traditional look and feel. The numbers reflect that shift. Same-store sales dropped 2.9% in Q3 2025, according to Chains2Guide, forcing the company to make difficult decisions. Denny's has now accepted that its footprint needs to shrink. In 2025, the chain announced plans to close 150 underperforming locations and agreed to be acquired for $620 million, preparing to exit the public markets in 2026. This move isn't tied to scandal or public controversy. It's strategic. Stepping away from Wall Street allows Denny's to quietly restructure, without the pressure of quarterly earnings calls and constant investor scrutiny. The problem isn't food quality, it's relevance. The brand no longer aligns with how modern consumers choose where to eat. While competitors like IHOP continue rolling out new menu ideas, McDonald's attracts budget-conscious diners with value-driven combos, and trendy brunch spots pull in younger crowds with flexible, modern offerings. Denny's has struggled to keep pace. Innovation has been slow, and the next generation has largely moved on. Now the brand faces a defining choice. Should Denny's protect its classic identity, the very thing longtime customers still recognize, or should it reinvent itself to appeal to younger diners who value novelty and convenience? What do you think? Is Denny's better off staying true to its roots, or does it need a complete refresh to survive? Number 3. Arby's. There's a unique kind of danger in being a brand that no one actively dislikes, but no one actively seeks out either. That's the position Arby's finds itself in today. Arby's isn't surrounded by controversy, and it doesn't spark outrage, but it also rarely comes to mind as a first choice. In the restaurant business, that kind of indifference can be fatal. According to data from All Recipes, Arby's posted a 6.3% revenue decline across 2024 and 2025, making it the weakest performer within the Inspire brand's portfolio. The contraction has been quiet but steady. In 2024, Arby's shut down 48 locations, and at least 14 more followed in 2025, including several in the Los Angeles area. There were no headlines, no public scandals, just stores closing and fading away without much notice. The issue isn't food quality, it's identity. Arby's doesn't compete well on price, and it doesn't offer a distinctive enough experience to become a must-have option. It sits in an uncomfortable middle ground, not cheap enough to win on value, and not unique enough to stand out. That weakness became especially clear in 2024, when more than 60% of Americans cut back on fast food spending, according to All Recipes. In an environment like that, only brands with a strong reason to be chosen survive. Arby's, unfortunately, hasn't given customers a compelling reason. So, be honest. Have you ever picked Arby's because you wanted it, or did you only end up there when nothing else was available? Drop your answer in the comments. Number 2. Jack in the Box. Sometimes a brand doesn't need a massive scandal to unravel. All it takes is a steady stream of small complaints, and Jack in the Box is a perfect example of that slow breakdown. Over time, customers kept voicing the same frustrations. The food didn't taste as good as it used to. Portions felt smaller. Value no longer matched the price. None of these issues were dramatic on their own, but together, they quietly pushed people away. By 2025, the damage was impossible to ignore. Revenue fell 4.2%, and the situation worsened rapidly toward the end of the year. In the fourth quarter alone, sales dropped another 7.4%, signaling that the decline wasn't slowing down, it was accelerating. The most telling moment wasn't a lawsuit or public controversy, it was leadership. In February 2025, the CEO stepped down, handing control to CFO Lance Tucker, whose mission was clear: stop the bleeding. In response, the company announced a turnaround plan called Jack on Track. But behind the branding, the strategy is blunt. Shut down between 150 and 200 underperforming locations, cut operating losses, and prepare to sell off Del Taco to raise cash. The reasons behind the struggle are straightforward. Beef prices surged, labor costs climbed, promotions failed to drive enough traffic. By the end of 2025, profit margins had been squeezed down to 16.1%, leaving little room for error. Jack in the Box isn't collapsing because the food suddenly became terrible. It's faltering because customers no longer have a clear reason to choose it over anything else. In a crowded fast food landscape, being forgettable is one of the biggest risks of all. So think about it. Have you ever gone to Jack in the Box because you genuinely wanted it? Or was it just the last option when everything else was closed? Share your take below. Number 1. The Cheesecake Factory. Still busy, but starting to feel its age. Unlike many other chains on this list, the Cheesecake Factory isn't empty. Dining rooms are still packed, and on the surface, the numbers look solid. In Q3 2025, the company reported $97.2 million in revenue, $31.9 million in net income, and same-store sales growth of 0.3%. There's no scandal here, no emergency. But there is a quiet warning. The challenge isn't performance today, it's relevance tomorrow. The Cheesecake Factory relies on an enormous menu, massive dining spaces, and long sit-down meals. That formula worked for decades. But consumer behavior is shifting, especially among younger diners who want to order quickly, eat efficiently, and move on. Meanwhile, competitors with tighter identities are gaining ground. Brands with focused menus and clear concepts, like North Italia or upscale brunch spots, are winning by doing less, not more. Fewer options, faster decisions, stronger brand clarity. The Cheesecake Factory isn't broken. But doing fine doesn't mean future-proof. A restaurant can be crowded today and still be out of step with where dining habits are heading. If the model doesn't evolve, what feels successful now could start to feel slow and outdated in the years ahead. So ask yourself this: do you prefer a menu the size of a novel, or a short list of great dishes you can choose from in 10 seconds? The 12 brands we've just covered aren't isolated failures. They're signals of a broader shift in how Americans eat, spend money, and adapt during an era of rising costs. Some chains will vanish completely, others may survive, but they won't look the same. The real question isn't which restaurant collapses next, it's which one still gives you a genuine reason to come back. Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you want to keep following the changes, quietly reshaping American life, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. I'll see you in the next one.